Most tech companies start with a plan, a roadmap, a product. This company started with nothing, literally. It somehow became the fastest growing smartphone brand of 2024. In December 2020, a tiny startup with no products, no factories, and barely a dozen employees made a promise to the world. 4 years later, nothing went from no products, no employees, and honestly no reason to succeed at all to over $1 billion in lifetime sales, growing at absurd 567% year over year. And yet their market share is only 0.2%. How does a company explode into relevance by barely existing on the scoreboard? How do you go from nothing to nothing? Yes, that sentence had my brain too. This is a story of how a small team in London tried to fight Apple and Samsung using design, hype, community, and how the very things that built nothing now threaten to tear it apart. And the whole thing begins with this guy, Carl Pei, co-founder of OnePlus, and a professional hype machine, a man who invented the phrase flagship killer. But in 2020, he looked at the smartphone industry and saw a graveyard of black rectangles, iterations with no innovations, more camera bumps, more RAM. So Pei did something radical. He founded a tech company at the worst possible time, in a pandemic, in a saturated market, but giants who spend more on marketing in a day than he had raised in total. But the point wasn't to beat the giants on specs and scale. He wanted to beat them on soul. What he did next would either spark a design revolution or become the biggest mistake of his career. Nothing's first strategy wasn't to hire more engineers. Again, the whole brand was about having fun and experimentation and taking risks. So the plan was to hire artists, specifically teenage engineers. The Stockholm-based design studio responsible for some of the most beautiful electronic devices ever made. And this partnership didn't just influence Nothing's design language. They practically built it. They give Nothing a superpower most startups never get: instant iconography, clear plastic, visible screws, and carefully exposed internals. Aesthetic minimalism that was in the complete opposite spectrum from Apple's clean devices, or as Scarlett referred to as boring devices. It was playful, curious, and expressive. Nothing suddenly had a visual identity recognizable from meters away. But then this created a hidden pressure. Brand identity became the design identity, and design identity became a cage. Nothing had to keep being weird, different, transparent. Anything less than that and the whole brand would fall apart. And we'll see exactly how that plays out later, because the transparent aesthetic made them famous, but it would turn their own fans against them. Now, while most companies use their marketing budgets, Nothing used Carl Pei's credibility. He did YouTube interviews, live Q&As, he leaned heavily on creators like Casey Neistat. And I was just going through this, and this part so blows my mind. Nothing raised 1.5 million from its community in 54 seconds. 54 seconds. And it's not even customers. They hadn't even made a freaking single product yet. And you can already tell at this point that their vision of being a community-driven brand was already taking shape. They had built a fan base even before the company had a single product. But communities are double-edged sword. A community can be your biggest asset or your most dangerous liability. We'll get that. For now, Nothing had hype, money, and design, and still no product. Soon, the same fans who built them up would demand answers they weren't ready to give. On July 27, 2021, Nothing launched Ear One, their first device, a transparent pair of wireless earbuds. Why would they make earbuds the first thing? I don't know, maybe that's the only thing the money they had was enough for. But it sold over 600,000 units in the first year. And more importantly, it sent a message. This company could actually ship things, beautiful things, profitable things, weird things. Okay, that's enough. They followed the Apple playbook but indie. They followed the OnePlus playbook but premium. And after proving they could make earbuds, Nothing did the unthinkable. Ear One proved they could ship a product. But what they attempted next would test whether they could survive. In 2022, Nothing launched Phone One, a mid-range device priced pretty aggressively. But the price wasn't the story. This thing at the back of the phone was the glyph interface, a pattern of LED lights on the back of the phone that pulsed, flashed, animated, synced with your ringtones, and created a visual language around notification. I mean, it was cool. Once again, it's unique. Apple isn't adding some quirky LEDs on the back of this thing anytime soon. But as expected, it was met with all kinds of opinions. Some called it genius, some thought it was just a gimmick. But it got everyone talking about it, and that's pretty important. It was the perfect collision of engineering and an artist, the exact vision Carl Pei had promised. Because for the first time in years, a smartphone looked fun. And Phone One wasn't meant to dethrone anyone, just to survive 30 seconds of an MKBHD record. And it actually did. It was meant to announce something. Well, in this case, nothing. But it worked. The company rocketed to global awareness. Sales accelerated. Media coverage exploded. But the moment they entered the spotlight, the expectations became impossible to escape. and nothing was about to hit its first major wall. But real quick, if you've been enjoying the videos, I always put all my effort and hard work into making sure you guys enjoy. So sub to the channel will be very much appreciated. Definitely helps the channel grow. Now you remember the part that I told you we'll catch to? Yeah, unless you skipped the video to this part, which welcome back. You missed absolutely nothing, which is everything for this video, but that's okay, never mind. Now, when you build a community that feels involved, they expect to stay involved. When you build a brand with transparency, you're expected to remain transparent. Yeah, literally. But nothing was still a tiny company. Only 56 employees in December 2023. A startup trying to act like a tech giant. A design house trying to act like a software company. And software would become their Achilles heel. Nothing wanted to be open, but openness comes with a cost. Now, Nothing was intentionally simple, clean and minimal, almost stock Android. But then early updates started breaking things. Animations stuttered, battery drained faster, and the camera forgot how to camera. Some photos looked like they were taken mid-up quick. Artistically, I guess. All the devices seemed neglected. Users and forums began posting things like, "It feels like they have abandoned us. Every update makes my phone worse. I regret trusting this company." What began as a mild frustration escalated into a full community revolt. And then Carl Pei responded, "Poi." A controversial moment circulated where Pei dismissed certain criticism, and this Reddit post says it off. Sorry, wrong post. Carl Pei's reaction equals to user feedback doesn't matter. I mean, it wasn't true, but perception is everything. Nothing's biggest strength, community involvement, was becoming a narrative liability. Nothing created a community that loved them quite deeply, but that meant betrayal hit harder. Now, in 2023, Nothing launched a sub-brand, CMF by Nothing. Bright colors, simple design, and even lower prices. This was smart. CMF generated volume, revenue, and presence in new markets. But it also created a contradiction. The main Nothing brand was supposed to be premium, artistic, and design-led. But suddenly, the company seemed obsessed with cheaper mid-range devices, and now they were giving the main devices less attention, like fewer software improvement. This was a conflict at a strategic level, volume versus value. Nothing was chasing growth like a mainstream company, while still positioning itself as a niche design studio. You can't be both. Not forever. They were being pulled in two different directions, and in a strange twist, Nothing quietly acquired the brand assets of Essential, the failed smartphone startup from Android's co-founder Andy Rubin. And this didn't give them patents or technology or factories. It gave them a myth, a legacy of ambitious failure, a symbolic torch passed from one rebel to another. Nothing used Essential's story the way Hollywood uses lore, to deepen the mythology. It told fans, we know what came before, we know where others fell, and we will not repeat those mistakes. But the irony is, some of those mistakes were repeating themselves. Nothing Phone 1 had the iconic glyph, and Phone 2 refined it. The new glyph matrix was more dense, more complex, and more animated. Some users loved it, many hated it. Classic tech product launch. I'm getting tired holding this thing. The new design sparked a wave of posts like, "They killed the glyph. This isn't the Nothing aesthetic anymore. They're innovating for the sake of innovation." This was a direct collision between identity and evolution, between fan expectations and design ambition. Nothing built a brand on doing things differently. They wanted evolution, but their fans wanted consistency. And unfortunately, both can't exist at the same time. So, after all this, what is Nothing? A design rebellion? A hype machine? A community experiment? The answer is all of them. And that's the point. Nothing's entire existence was built on tension. Design versus function, community versus control, identity versus revolution, premium versus mid-range. These aren't mistakes. They are the fuel that keeps the brand culturally relevant. And Nothing isn't winning the smartphone war through dominance. They're winning through media. The millions of people who don't own a Nothing phone still know what it looks like, still remember the transparent earbuds, and still talk about the brand. In a market of identical slabs, Nothing is a conversation, and that is their power. Here's the truth. Nothing may never become a mainstream giant. They may never dethrone Apple. They may never match Samsung's scale. But they might not need. In a world where innovation has become incremental, Nothing reminds us tech can still be surprising, whimsical, human, and weird. They represent the audacity to try something different, to design something expressive, to build a company not on perfection but on identity. And if they can find the balance between vision and execution, between hype and stability, creativity and reliability, they might just become a new kind of tech giant. Not a giant of scale, but a giant of culture.